Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers quarterback streaming philosophy must end immediately. Nobody said finding a franchise quarterback is easy, but everyone should agree that finding one is necessary. Pittsburgh Steelers fans are learning what life is like after Ben Roethlisberger, and it hasn't been pleasant for this team. Beginning with Big Ben's season-ending elbow injury in 2019, a year in which the Steelers were forced to turn to Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges for help, this team hasn't felt like a serious competitor. When Roethlisberger returned from injury, he wasn't the same quarterback in his old age for his final 2 seasons. Unfortunately, every effort to fill the position post-Roethlisberger has fallen short. The Steelers pigeonholed themselves into selecting Kenny Pickett in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. This experiment was short-lived and he was traded to the Eagles after just 2 seasons. Now, over the past 3 years, the Steelers have had 5 different starting quarterbacks. This is what bad franchises typically do. None of the quarterbacks to walk through here in recent years came close to resembling a franchise signal caller who could carry Pittsburgh to another championship. Many of you are old enough to remember the gap of underwhelming, and often downright dismal, quarterback play between the retirement of Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers' decision to draft Ben Roethlisberger. For over 2 decades, this prestigious franchise sat in limbo, hardly even attempting to find their next franchise quarterback. With expectations so high for the 6-time Super Bowl champs, the Steelers can't continue to tread down this path of streaming quarterbacks and believing they will be good enough to bring playoff success. There's no perfect answer as to whom the Pittsburgh Steelers should go after. When taking a quarterback in the draft, there's always going to be risk with an unproven commodity. Likewise, we've seen how poorly QB trades have worked out around the NFL in recent years. Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson are prime examples. But as scary as it can be to fork up draft capital and money, this is the right way to go. After streaming quarterbacks for 3 seasons, the Steelers need to be diligently looking for an opportunity to land a franchise quarterback. This is most likely to happen through the NFL Draft. Sadly, 2025 may not be the year to get one, as this is an unspectacular quarterback class. But as early as the 2026 NFL Draft, Pittsburgh must make preparations as if they are going to move up in the draft for a player who can turn their franchise around. I don't fault teams who swing and miss at the quarterback position, as long as they are taking a player with the tools and upside to become a great QB at the next level. At least the process is right and they understand the value of the position in the NFL. The Steelers may not have a great answer at quarterback during the 2025 offseason, but they must understand that this team isn't going to find true postseason success without a franchise QB. It's time to end this quarterback streaming philosophy and make a move that will bring lasting success. Tim Benz: when Art Rooney too says actions speak louder than words, he better consider his brother Jim's words. A noteworthy statement that Pittsburgh Steelers owner Art Rooney too made in his annual year-end meeting with the media was a quick retort to a question about recent comments made by his brother. Last week, Jim Rooney was on a podcast with former NFL player Ross Tucker. Jim is promoting a book about his late father, Dan, and his ownership of the Steelers, called A Different Way to Win. During the interview with Tucker, Jim defended the Steelers' 8-year playoff victory drought under head coach Mike Tomlin and the organization's failure to win a playoff game in 15 of the past 19 years. I don't want to get into excuse-making, but the reality is, we outperformed the NFL mean at a greater rate than just about any team for the last 25 years, Jim said. Another team that has been in that category in terms of outperforming that mean has been the Ravens. There's no other team that has been as successful and has a division rival that has outperformed the mean. We have performed in a harder circumstance than most, and we've outperformed them. Jim isn't a direct part of the Rooney family's ownership of the Steelers. But his name is associated with a franchise that allegedly lives by the credo, "the standard is the standard." Hence, his explanations and excuses for why the team has been a postseason no-show for almost a decade made headlines. I think the Steelers organization and Mike Tomlin have outperformed any expectation you could have of any NFL team in terms of who they have to play against, what the competition looks like, etc., Jim continued. Those opinions and others from Jim during Tucker's podcast didn't go over well with a frustrated fanbase. On Monday, Art Rooney too was asked to comment on his brother's characterization of the franchise. Jim speaks for himself, Art replied. I'm happy that he's doing good selling his book. Art appeared to be strategically curt and dismissive in his response, essentially saying, Jim may think that way, but we don't. Jim may be making those excuses, but we aren't. The problem is, though, everything else Art said to assembled media members on Monday ostensibly echoed Jim Rooney's assessment of the franchise's mindset. Pittsburgh Steelers could steal intriguing Chiefs weapon in 2025 NFL free agency. Heading into the 2025 NFL offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of decisions to make. First and foremost, the Steelers will have to decide what they want to do at quarterback. Both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are set to hit the open free agency market. More than likely, Pittsburgh will re-sign one of them, but not both. After that decision is made, the Steelers will need to figure out how to add more talent to the rest of the roster. Bringing in another weapon for whoever ends up being the quarterback would be wise. In order to do that, the Pittsburgh Steelers could consider trying to steal a weapon away from the Kansas City Chiefs. In a new article from Pro Football Focus, they took a look at some potential landing spots for the top quarterbacks and wide receivers in free agency. When it came to Chiefs wideout Deandre Hopkins, the Steelers were named as a possible destination. Hopkins' 77.0 PFF receiving grade this season shows the 32-year-old still has good snaps left in the tank, which could draw the attention of Mike Tomlin and his staff. The Steelers may have questions at quarterback, but providing whoever ends up under center with a solid tandem on the outside in Hopkins and George Pickens would go a long way. Hopkins may not be what he once was, but he's still more than capable of making an impact. Throughout the course of the 2024 NFL season split between Kansas City and the Tennessee Titans, Hopkins ended up catching a total of 56 passes for 610 yards and 5 touchdowns. At 32 years old, those numbers aren't shabby at all. Even though the Pittsburgh Steelers would not be getting a superstar by signing Hopkins, they would be getting a quality number 2 behind George Pickens. That is exactly what they need. All of that being said, the Steelers are going to be a team to keep a close eye on. They came up short once again this season and will look to put in work to take the next step in 2025. Adding a piece like Hopkins could be a big step in that direction. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of DeAndre Hopkins? Leave your opinion in the comments.